Lana here, and I am sharing my birth story today with Sunny. I hope it's an encouragement to you. I know that for me, when I was pregnant with my first baby, I just wanted to hear other women's stories. And so there are some definite nuggets in this birth story that I hope will be helpful for you if natural birth is your goal. Towards the end of the video, I share a couple things that some mindset things I was thinking about that I hope are really helpful for you. I have had all of my babies outside of the hospital, and that might sound crazy to some of you and it might sound completely normal to other people. I had Sunny in about 3 hours and I birthed her in the birthing tub. But a couple of things I want to say about that is I felt like this labor was especially short because of some things I really felt like the Lord had led me to think about. And I felt like He prepared my heart and mind for a long time, because if you've ever been pregnant or in your third trimester, you know that you realize, wow, I have to birth this baby, and you kind of get a little bit anxious about it. And so that happened for me, and that's happened on every one of my babies. Is I get pregnant and I'm like, oh wow, I'm gonna have to actually get this baby out of me. But I felt like this time when I was in labor with Sunny, I felt like the Lord really helped me remember that I was going to actually get to meet her at the end of this thing. And I felt like with my first 2 births, I got lost in the labor and I had forgotten that, wow, all of this was to meet this little person. And so I started feeling labor pains around 3:30 in the afternoon, but really dull. Like, I carried on with my day. I went to Target. I was cleaning. I do real estate, so I went and showed a house, and I kind of knew I was in labor, but it was just some dull kind of pains. They felt like period pains, but like period cramps, but just very manageable. They weren't really rhythmic, and so I never can quite tell if I'm in labor at the beginning because it just doesn't seem like much. It just seems pretty manageable. I think by like 6:30, I kind of knew like, I'm probably going to have this baby. But it really wasn't until 9:30 that it started to ramp up and get rhythmic. And I called my midwife and all of that. And so she had me using an app where you track your contractions. And I was walking around in Target probably about 8 o'clock or so. And it's like, you need to make your way to the hospital. I was like, okay, so I'll head home. They started getting rhythmic, and since I've had my last 3 babies at home, it was nice. I didn't have to go anywhere. I just kind of turned the lights down low. Light is a big deal to me when I'm in labor. I don't like to be in bright places. I want to be just in a dark, quiet, peaceful place. So I went around and I turned on some soft lights, and I love listening to United Pursuit when I'm in labor. The words just speak to me, so I had United Pursuit playing and just kind of started getting in the mode. And one thing that I had heard before was that the difference between cows and buffaloes. So this was really big for me, that cows actually stay in a storm longer because they run from the rain or they run from the storm. But that bison or buffalo, they run into a storm. And because they run into a storm, they're in the storm less time. And so I knew that with this labor that I wanted to remember that if I ran into the pain, a lot of people don't like to use the word pain, but it can be painful, that if I ran into that, remembering that labor wasn't going to last forever. These contractions were helpful. They were bringing the baby down. And if I participated with my body and participated with what the baby was doing, because Sunny knew what to do, my body knew what to do, but I feel like what I had done in the past was I let my mind get in the way. So my fear just of the pain would just try to stay as comfortable as possible. And I think by staying as comfortable as possible, I was somehow hindering the situation sometimes. And I definitely felt like I did that for my first 2 labors. I was just so nervous and scared. But I really feel like that this time the Lord helped me remember that each contraction was bringing me closer to meeting Sunny. And so at 9:30, when it started to kick up, I felt like the Lord led me to get out my journal and just to write Sunny a letter. So when you're in labor, it's not just constant pain unless you have Pitocin. It's rhythmic, and so you might have a contraction that lasts 30 seconds to 45 seconds or to a minute, but then there's going to be a break. And so I had, between contractions, I was just writing to Sunny, and I wrote a letter to her just telling her how excited I was to meet her, and just praying over her. And it just helped me stay connected with the fact that I was about to meet this baby. And also, once I wrote that letter, I flipped over the page and I just wrote some things out to the Lord, just praying, because as I start to get deeper into labor, I start to not want to talk. I have a lot of thoughts going on in my head, but I don't want to talk. I get really quiet and I get really in the zone. So I was standing the whole time through labor, and I was just swaying. I like to sway back and forth and kind of move through the contractions. With my first birth, with my oldest, I slow danced with my husband. I had my arms on his shoulders and I was just slow dancing. But this time I just wanted to be by myself. So I would lean against a wall or a counter and just in a quiet place, and just, it was amazing. I could feel Sunny moving down. This is the first labor I could feel her like inching down while I was in a contraction. It was wild. And I told my midwife, I said, I don't want to slow labor down. So tell me what I can do to move right through the heart of this thing. I don't want to be in labor any longer than I have to meet this baby. So she told me to go stand in the shower and let the hot water hit my back. Because I was having a little bit of back labor and some sciatic pain down my leg. So I did that, and that was really helpful. I stayed in there for a really, really long time until I knew I was getting a little bit closer. And so I came back into the room. I had the birth tub blown up in this room, and I came in here, and I didn't want to get into the birth tub too soon because I knew it would slow things down. But I knew I definitely wanted to push her out in the birth tub if at all possible. I kind of felt like I was getting ready to push, and in my other labors, I had waited for permission to push. Like, they'd say, oh, do you need to push? But I started to feel some pressure down there, and then my water broke. Right there behind me, leaning against that wall, my water broke, and then I really started to feel some pressure, and I got into the birthing tub, and just thinking back to it, it's so wild, but I laid down, and they have to stop periodically throughout labor and check baby's heart rate and check everything. So you have to be really still through a couple of contractions, which isn't always fun. Everything was good, so I was laying there and she was checking stuff, and then I started to feel like I needed to push. I pushed, and I could feel the baby's head move from that high down. So I could feel her at the exit, and then I pushed again, and her head came out. Praise the Lord. That's always, I feel like, the most challenging part. When I got another contraction, I pushed her body out and just reached down and pulled her up on my chest. And that is always just the best moment, because there's just a wave of relief. But that whole time, it really stretches my faith, because I can feel that the Lord is with me. I can feel that His presence is near. I really feel like it's almost like when God asked Peter to get out and walk on the water. It's just a faith stretching moment. It's just been a faith building experience for me, and it has really bolstered my faith in other areas of my life when things are hard. And so this is just how I have felt called to have babies, is to have them at home. But yeah, always the disclaimer that it's not about being stronger than another woman, or when people say, "Oh, you're so strong, I can never do that." My pushback is, well, I really felt called to have my babies that way. And if somebody else felt called to do the same, I know that the Lord would be with them. And also, I really trust my midwife. So I knew that if ever anything was unsafe, she would get me out of her care as soon as possible to the hospital. And so that just gave me a lot of peace that I was only going to be at home if it was safe. I heard another thing recently that really encapsulates how I feel like my labor went. And it was, I think it's Bear versus Wild on Netflix, but he says, people ask me all the time how I am so courageous and how I don't have fear. And he said, the truth is, I do have fear. We all have fear. Fear is part of life, he said, but courage is just moving right through the middle of your fears. And he said, not running away from them. And I felt like labor was sweeter when the Lord helped me run right into the middle of it instead of trying to run around it or be as comfortable as possible through it, to just run right into the middle of the storm. And it was just amazing to see that when I remembered that my body knows how to do this, my baby knows how to do this, that if I will just participate with my body and with my baby, that I would be holding her so much sooner. And it was true. I did. 3 short hours to just have this precious little nugget. It's so worth it all the time. And I try to tell other mamas that it's such a short amount of time for all the time that the Lord gives you with your little people. And my oldest is 6 years old now, and I'm like, man, I was in labor on and off for 2 days, and that was tough, but it was totally worth it for all the time I've had with him. And that's such a gift to me, and it's also helped me, like I said, in other hard times of my life. Just remember that none of us get trophies or badges for bringing the baby into this world naturally, but it is a really special and beautiful process if you can do so.